On December 18, 1975, the Lutz family moved into what they thought was their dream home, a beautiful, sprawling Dutch colonial on the serene waterfront of Amityville, New York. They snagged it for a bargain price they just couldn't refuse. But, as it often goes, the price was low for a very dark reason. Only 13 months earlier, the house had been the stage for an almost unthinkable crime. The family thought they could look past its dark history. They were dead wrong. They would last just 28 days before running for their lives, leaving everything they owned behind, driven out by an unseen force they could only describe as pure evil. This is the story of those 28 days. It's a minute-by-minute account of the paranormal nightmare that supposedly unfolded inside 112 Ocean Avenue, a house that would become the most infamous haunting in American history. But it's also the story of everything that came after. The media frenzy, the paranormal investigators, the heated controversy, and the one question that still lingers: was a family truly tormented by a demonic presence, or did they pull off one of the most elaborate hoaxes of all time? Imagine this. It's your last, terrifying night in your own home. You're paralyzed in bed, helpless, as you listen to some powerful, invisible entity violently slamming your children's beds against the floorboards right above you. This is what George Lutz reported. His wife, Kathy, was said to have levitated right off their bed. It was the chaotic, terrifying peak of a month filled with escalating horror. But this nightmare didn't start with the Lutzes. It started with 6 gunshots a year earlier. Before it was the Amityville Horror house, 112 Ocean Avenue was home to the DeFeo family. The patriarch, Ronald DeFeo Jr., had even named it High Hopes. But on the night of November 13, 1974, that hope ran out. The house became a slaughterhouse. Around 3:15 in the morning, 23-year-old Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr. took a high-powered rifle and moved silently from room to room, shooting and killing his entire family. His parents, Ronald Sr. and Louise, and his 4 younger siblings, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John. The crime was as bizarre as it was brutal. How could 6 people be shot and killed in their beds without any sign of a struggle? Investigators were stumped. Every victim was found face down. Neighbors didn't hear a thing, even though the rifle had no silencer. How could one person execute 6 family members without a single one waking up or crying out? Butch DeFeo's initial story about a mob hit fell apart fast. He confessed the very next day, reportedly telling police, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop." He would later try to use an insanity defense, claiming demonic voices in the house made him do it. The jury didn't buy it for a second. In November 1975, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was convicted on 6 counts of second-degree murder and sent away for what would essentially be the rest of his life. With the killer behind bars, the house on Ocean Avenue sat empty, holding on to its secrets and willing. 13 months later, George and Kathy Lutz, along with Kathy's 3 kids, Daniel, Christopher, and Missy, saw the house as a fresh start. They knew all about the murders, but they decided to move in anyway on December 18, 1975. The strange events began almost immediately. On day 1, a priest arrived to bless the home. As he sprinkled holy water in an upstairs bedroom, he said he heard a deep, masculine voice boom, "Get out!" Shaken, the priest warned the Lutzes not to use that room as a bedroom, but didn't say exactly why. He later claimed an invisible hand slapped him and that he developed painful blisters on his palms. The first week was a slow, creeping dread. The house was plagued by swarms of flies, which made no sense in the middle of winter. Foul odors would appear out of nowhere and then vanish. Cold spots drifted through the hallways, chilling the family to the bone. And George Lutz began to change. He became moody and withdrawn, obsessed with keeping the fireplace roaring, and he started waking up like clockwork at 3:15 a.m., the estimated time of the DeFeo murders. Soon, the phenomena grew more direct. The couple's 5-year-old daughter, Missy, started talking to a new imaginary friend named Jody. She described Jody as a pig-like creature with glowing red eyes that would sometimes stare at her from outside her bedroom window. George claimed he saw the same red-eyed creature peering in at them. Then came the physical stuff. Greenish-black slime was found oozing out of keyholes and from the walls in the hallway. Doors would slam shut on their own. One night, Kathy said she was embraced by an unseen force in bed, and later claimed to have levitated off the mattress. George heard what sounded like a phantom marching band in the living room. But when he checked, there was nothing there. It felt like the house itself was trying to force them out. The personality changes in George got worse. He was always cold, angry, and stopped caring about his appearance. The family's once stable finances suddenly nosedived. The kids were targeted too. One evening, the boys' beds were allegedly lifted and dropped violently by an unseen force. The front door was mysteriously ripped clean off its hinges. Crucifixes they had hung on the walls were found flipped upside down. The family was terrified, exhausted, and constantly on edge. On January 14, 1976, they hit their breaking point. The last night was a full-blown assault of paranormal activity. George was kept awake by violent banging from upstairs. He heard his children's beds slamming against the floor, but felt paralyzed, unable to move or scream. After 28 days of hell, they couldn't take it anymore. They grabbed a few things and fled in the middle of the night, leaving almost all of their possessions behind, never to return. After their escape, the Lutz's story exploded into the public consciousness, and the Amityville Horror phenomenon was born. They brought in paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who conducted a seance in the house in March 1976. Lorraine, a clairvoyant, claimed she felt a demonic presence and had visions of the DeFeo murders. It was during their investigation that a now famous photograph was taken, supposedly showing a small, ghost-like boy with glowing eyes peering out from a doorway. Jay Anson's 1977 book, The Amityville Horror, A True Story, became a massive bestseller, and the 1979 blockbuster film cemented the house's terrifying legacy. But almost as quickly as the legend grew, holes began to appear in the story. Journalists and skeptics pointed out major inconsistencies. For instance, weather records showed there was no snow on the ground, when the Lutzes claimed to have found cloven hoofprints. Subsequent owners of the home found the original door hardware intact, despite claims that it had been destroyed. Perhaps most telling, the Lutzes never called the police, not once, during their entire 28-day ordeal. The family who bought the house after them, the Cromartys, lived there for 10 years and reported zero paranormal activity. The same has been true for every owner since. But the most damaging blow came from Ronald DeFeo's own defense attorney, William Weber. In 1979, Weber flat out admitted that he and the Lutzes concocted the whole story over many bottles of wine. He claimed it started as a money-making idea that got out of hand. Court records even show the Lutzes sued Weber over profits from the book deal. Years later, one of the Lutz children, Christopher, said in a documentary that he believes his stepfather, George, was dabbling in the occult and embellished the story for fame and fortune. Twisting a traumatic experience into a business venture. The Amityville saga remains one of the most divisive paranormal cases ever. Was 112 Ocean Avenue a gateway to hell, or was it a brilliant and lucrative hoax built on the bones of a real-life family tragedy? Let us know what you believe in the comments below. And if you love exploring these kinds of mysteries, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. Despite a mountain of evidence suggesting the haunting was a hoax, the legend of Amityville just won't die. George and Kathy Lutz stuck to their story until their deaths, and they even reportedly passed a polygraph test. Their son Daniel claims the events ruined his life and that the nightmares never stopped. What's the real story? Was 112 Ocean Avenue a house where one horrible tragedy was exploited to create another, or was it something more? The story taps into a deep, universal fear that the one place we're supposed to feel safe, our own home, can turn against us. It's a chilling tale that blurs the line between fact and fiction and leaves us all wondering what really happened inside the world's most famous haunted house. Subscribe.